So I wanted to go over my nutrition plan for Ironman Arizona and how my blood sugars were able to stabilize throughout the whole race without me going low or going really, really high. And so my performance wasn't really affected by my sugar level. It was obviously more affected by my lack of training, but that's another story. So I took half insulin for my nighttime, long-acting insulin that works throughout the entire day to stabilize my blood sugars, because I knew with all of that endurance racing, I wouldn't need as much insulin. And then for breakfast before the race, I took absolutely zero insulin. I ate about 70-ish carbs. I had some oatmeal and a banana and some sports drink. I think it was Gatorade. And then, so I started the race, I want to say about 3:10. And I know that's a little high, but I knew that that was going to be the best for me and my performance. So I tested right before the swim, which was about, I want to say 15 minutes before I actually had to leave to go line up for the start line. And then during the swim, I obviously didn't take any carbs or anything, and I wasn't able to test because I was in the water. But during T1, I got out of the water and I tested my blood sugar, and it was about 205. I knew it was going to be a little elevated because I didn't take any insulin for breakfast. And then while I was getting on the bike, I got some Hammer Nutrition gel, which is about 25 to 30 carbs, I want to say. And then I knew that was going to bring me a little bit back up. So I was probably around 270, 280 once I really got on the bike. And then every 10 miles, there's an aid station. So there's Gatorade, there's a little bit of food, but mostly people just grab Gatorade because you're flying by at such high speeds that it's really hard to stop and actually get some food. So every aid station I would grab a bottle of Gatorade and then just drink that throughout the race. And then during aid station 4, so I want to say at mile 40, I had to get off my bike because I was cramping so bad. And I asked the aid station if they had any salt tablets, because it helps you retain water better and it makes it so you don't cramp as bad. But they didn't have any. But while I was stopped, there was actually another racer there that was able to give me some of hers, which I really appreciate. So I took some of those, which that doesn't really affect my blood sugar at all. But I wasn't cramping as bad, so I knew that the run wouldn't be as bad as if I didn't take them, because I could barely walk at that time. I was cramping so bad. And then during T2, I got off the bike and my blood sugar was about 170-ish. And it was kind of like a roller coaster, blood sugars. I would be at 270 and then I'd drop a lot, and then I'd have to take more Gatorade. But I never really got under 130. And again, I know that's elevated, but it's better to be higher when you're doing endurance racing than low, because once you're low, it's too late and you're gonna have to sit down and really affect your time a lot. And I was so undertrained that I barely finished to begin with. So if I had to sit down and take that time to make sure my blood sugar got back up, I honestly don't think I would have made the cutoff. And then, so I got off the bike into T2 about 170-ish. And then on the way to the run, I took another gel, which is another 25 to 30 carbs. So I was about 220, but when I run, my blood sugar drops a lot quicker than when I bike. So I knew I had to stay elevated during the start of the run. And then through mile 2, 3, 4, I would like test my blood sugar probably about every 25 minutes while I was running, because I had like my testing kit in my back pocket of like my triathlon jersey. So I would take it out like as I was running and test. And through those miles, I was hovering around 160, 155-ish. So I knew I was doing decent, and my blood sugars wouldn't really be an issue for the rest of the race. So every mile after that, I would just take a few sips of Gatorade, and then like a banana, so my blood sugars wouldn't drop tremendously. And then around mile 8 or 9, I was walking at this time because, again, lack of training. My blood sugar started to drop like a lot. It was at 160-ish throughout the rest of the race, but then once I got to mile 8 or 9, it started going 130, then the next mile 120, and then by mile 9 I was probably around 105. So I knew it was dropping pretty quickly. It dropped about 50 to 60 points in 35 to 40 minutes. So I knew I had to take in a little bit more carbs so I would be steady through the rest of the race. So around that time, I took about 2 gels, which is around 80 carbs, which I didn't know if that was going to be really too much because this was my first Ironman. So around 11 or 12, I would test it about every half mile just to be safe. And then it was still like around 150-ish, and I had about 1.1 miles left, around mile 12. And I knew I would be okay then, even if I started to drop low. Like I knew I had enough to at least finish. And then when I got to the finish line, I was so dehydrated, even with all of that fluid intake throughout the whole race. I went straight to the medical tent just so I could test my blood sugar and they could give me an IV just for hydration purposes. And at the medical tent, I was like 125-ish. So I was still dropping consistently, even with like the 80 carbs. And that honestly surprised me. Like I thought I would be pretty elevated by then. So the race like wasn't really too bad for blood sugar wise, but then an hour and a half went by after the race, and that's when the drop really happened. I went from 120 to like 75 like almost instantly. And then throughout that, over that hour and a half, I had to basically just keep drinking Gatorade. No matter how many carbs I took in, I was just hovering around 75 the entire time. And I kind of figured that was gonna happen just because usually when I do any type of cardio, I usually have more trouble after. Like it really doesn't affect me too much like during it, but after is when I really start to drop. So I knew I would have to be careful like at night and like sleeping after the race. So I would just continue to drink Gatorade. I probably would drink about 1.5 every hour, so that's around 65 to 70 carbs. And then I would drink a bottle of water with that. So I was taking in a ton of fluid after the race because I knew just how dehydrated I was.
I don't want to run anymore.
Ever again.
I'll probably take like 5 days off. But
Well, I hope that made up for sitting on my ass all the time.